Hi everybody, it's Patty from Some Other Solutions. I want to share with you a quick technique that I absolutely love. It's called Taming the Horse. I teach it to all of the people that I work with, and I work with people in kindergarten to grade 12 and also adults. I use this practice every day, daily. So here's the thing, when I'm working with people, specifically the little kids, I tell them that there is a wild horse in our mind. So it's always jumping and running and, not paying attention. Because typically, individuals don't spend any time observing their own thoughts. The thoughts kind of run by themselves. In a way, it seems like the mind is controlling us, while it could be the opposite way. We should be the ones controlling our thoughts, not so willy-nilly and letting that horse run away. Okay, so I know that's more difficult. It's easier said than done. And I'm here to tell you a step-by-step process on how to tame your horse. It takes practice. Okay, so I'm going to share with you this little PowerPoint first. Okay, so taming the horse. Okay, so these little horse friends are wild. They're running and jumping like I described. So think about this as like your thoughts, if we're not aware of them. They run wildly. Okay, now there are 5 steps on how to start to tame or practice controlling your horse. The first step, and I'll show you this in the next slide. The first step, I want to talk a little bit about each step first, and then I'll show you them all together. The first step is observing. Now, observing specifically the thoughts. So if I ask you, I even ask this to little kids so they understand what I'm saying. If I tell them, just for a brief moment, just close your eyes for a moment and just see if you can hear your own voice, your own thought. What are you thinking right now at this moment? It may be a few thoughts. It may be, oh, I'm a little bit hungry. I'm a little bit cold. I don't know what she's talking about. It could be anything. I really want to color. So it doesn't matter what it is. I just want you to hear your own thought. And if you can hear the own thought, then you've already practiced it. So just for that moment, pausing, maybe closing your eyes, notice your thought. Can you hear it internally? Okay, then I get them to open their eyes again and say, you just heard that thought. For what that did is the horse wasn't jumping at that moment. It was actually existing. It was being there. And so what you did is kind of made space in between you and the horse. So what you did at that moment is you observed your thought, you heard your thought, you kind of put a saddle on the horse's back. So you're already starting to tame it. Okay, so the second step. So the first step is observe. Second step is breath. So when you just pause and notice the thought, notice how you're breathing. Maybe you're holding your breath. Maybe the breath is really quick. Maybe the breath is really slow. Maybe it's up in your chest or in your belly. There's no right or wrong. You just notice your breath. So that's number 2. Number 3, this is a little bit interesting one. Number 3 is craving or an urge. This will make sense in a minute. Number 4 is practice. Okay, I'm going to go back to this little screen here, and that will make sense. Okay, so we got the horses. Okay, so these are the 4 steps. I think I said 5 steps before. I apologize. It's only 4. Okay, so taming the horse, this number 1 is observe. What are you thinking? So if you can hear your own voice when you just pause for a moment, that means that the horse is not in control anymore. You're in control. Number 2, breathing. Notice your breathing. Number 3, this is where it gets tangible, that you can actually start to notice your horse. This number 3 is very, very good for little kids. So number 3, the craving or an urge. Notice the impulse control. Now, how you would teach that to a little kid is, for example, I teach little kids and we all get into a circle. We usually have a talking stick or something. And, the guideline of the talking stick is whoever has the talking stick is the only one talking. And so we practice. So when the little kid has the talking stick and there's another person across the circle, and if they get really heightened and excited about what the other person with the talking stick is saying, for example, I had this one little person say, oh, I went to West Edmonton Mall and I went swimming at the mall. And another little person across the circle and said, oh, I did too. I went to that too. And I love the swimming pool there. It's so great. So I paused the circle. I said, whoa, okay. Did you notice that your horse was jumping? It wanted to react. It wanted to jump into the conversation. What we have to do now is just pause and sit back in the saddle and just wait until it's your turn. And that little person knew what I was talking about. So we had a conversation about it. So I said, now this is when it comes to number 4, the practice, the conversation. This is how you can practice tangibly. So you tell the kids, you bring up that teachable moment. This is what happened, and how can we practice to sit into our saddle? Instead of jumping up, how can I sit down? So that's a really good opportunity to do so. Okay, so the next thing that we can do for the older kids is tell them to notice when they want to pick up their phone. So, I mean, we all have our own, like, I guess, addiction to our phone to some capacity. Okay, so have you ever been like watching TV and a commercial comes on and all of a sudden, the urge or the sensation arises that you just kind of want to check your phone for no reason, no particular reason? I've done that a million times. So that's an opportunity to practice. So notice the urge to want to check your phone. Doesn't mean you can't check it. It just means you can just wait for 3 more seconds. So if you notice the urge, it's usually physiological, usually in your body. And you can see the little kids, when they want to cut you off in a sentence, you can feel them, like they lift up. So you can start to feel it in your body, and you can tell the kids, they'll start to notice it in themselves. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Oh, that's really great. You noticed your horse. So that moment of before you check your phone, noticing that physiological urge, just pausing for a second, take 3 breaths, and then you can check your phone. So what that does is create more space. You sit in the saddle a little bit longer. And the more that you can practice that, the longer you'll sit eventually. But this takes so much practice. And you can do this with your partners or, your family members at home. Start practicing with your phone and with conversation. Notice when you want to interrupt somebody. Just pause. Just pause for 3 seconds. Be uncomfortable in the silence. um, because that silence is really powerful. It's you training your horse, taming your horse. And little kids, they get this. You just have to make it a little bit more, you know, language that they can understand. But they get it. They love it. Um, and they can catch you on it too, especially if you're an adult. They'll start to catch you. Oh, I heard your horse. So it's a really good opportunity that you guys can practice together. So number one, observe the thought. Can you hear your own thought? Number two, check in with your breathing. Number three, the craving and urge. Usually this is physiological. Remember, like they kind of like lift out of their seat. I want to talk. I want to talk. So notice that and then tame it. Practice. Okay. Oh, I caught that for a moment. Sometimes we don't catch it. We catch it right after we did it. So it's a good practice. Number four, the last one, practice, practice, practice. Practice taming your horse. Okay, until next time.